My name's EarthToLydia, and here are my top picks for licenses that I would love to see in Dead by Daylight, but realistically, we probably won't. Before I start, I make Dead by Daylight videos like these as often as I can, and I also stream Dead by Daylight and occasionally other horror games over at my Twitch channel at twitch.tv/EarthToLydia. It'd be great to see you in a stream over there, but for now, let's get into the video. The first and most obvious one in this list is the iconic Jason Voorhees from Friday the 13th. If you don't know the can of worms behind this, oh boy, it's a lot. In short, there's a lot of issues with who owns the rights to Jason and the Friday the 13th franchise. After Friday the 13th, the game, a huge court case developed over who exactly owns what pieces, and it took years to resolve. While the court case was going on, this immediately halted any development and future plans for the Friday the 13th game, and over time, it absolutely killed the game. The case has now come to an end, but even now, it's messy. Victor Miller holds the copyright over the original story of Friday the 13th, while Horror Inc. owns different rights, and then there's New Line Cinema. From a developer's point of view, I wouldn't even know where to start with this. Either you've got to convince all of these parties that have just viciously fought it out in a long-standing lawsuit to collaborate together, bringing the Jason with his iconic mask and machete under the Friday name out as a whole package, or you work with only one of the parties and work very carefully on the parts that they own to bring out something that might not even be recognizable, and you might not even legally be allowed to call him Jason. While the Trapper is a beloved original character loosely resembling Jason, from a legal standpoint, this is probably the closest we will ever get to seeing Jason in Dead by Daylight. Secondly, my all-time favorite chapter that I would love to see in DBD is Beetlejuice. I feel like the Juice himself, and of course Lydia Dietz, would make excellent survivors in the realm of the entity, but I feel like this one could purely be a problem with timing. The second movie has just been released after a wait of over 30 years, so releasing a chapter alongside that would be huge. But the movie's been and gone, and we've not seen a DLC, so if it hasn't happened by now, I feel like that ship has sailed. Also, realistically, this would probably be best as a survivor-only edition, as I'm not sure there's a real standout killer that could accompany this. Beetlejuice himself isn't really suited to the role, as in the film and the animated series, he may be nefarious and chaotic, but he ultimately teams up with the living to help them battle a greater evil. Even with his bioexorcist hat, he's more suited to being a silly Nicolas Cage type survivor rather than an actual killer. I don't know how mechanically you could get a sandworm to work from the killer's point of view, as it's not in any way a humanoid, so I think that rules them out. The only one that I could really think would pass is Dolores from the second movie, but is she notable enough for the DBD fans to spend money and effort on her? I'm not so sure. Another chapter I would absolutely love to see in the fog is Universal Monsters. Think The Mummy, The Wolfman, Frankenstein's Monster, Phantom of the Opera, Creature of the Black Lagoon. The possibilities here are absolutely limitless. A lot of these characters were portrayed on the silver screen and made famous by the incredibly talented actor and makeup artist Lon Chaney and his son Lon Chaney Jr. Lon Chaney was actually so talented in changing his appearance to bring these iconic monsters to life that he was known as the Man of a Thousand Faces, and Universal still celebrates his work in the horror makeup show at their theme park in Orlando, Florida. Universal's monsters are so famous that the images we all have in our heads when we think of those monsters today are because of the success of those films. Unfortunately, the reason that I don't think we'll ever see these in Dead by Daylight is because Behavior themselves have said that they don't want to add classic monsters like this. Instead, they prefer to come up with their own original concepts or license characters from more popular modern franchises. But we've also seen Dracula added to the game in the Castlevania DLC. This isn't the typical Dracula like we know from Bram Stoker, so maybe if another series popularized those characters in a unique way, we could see a crossover. Much like the rest of the gaming world, last year I got hooked on Baldur's Gate 3. Therefore, I would absolutely love to see some of the characters from this game included in Dead by Daylight. In particular, fan favorites like Astarion and Karlach would be incredible to see on the Survivors roster, while Orin the Red and Cazador would make amazing killers. Unfortunately, it was announced by Larian Studios CEO earlier this year that no more Baldur's Gate games or material will be released by Larian, and they also won't be producing anything else under the Dungeons & Dragons license. Plus, we've already got a Dungeons & Dragons DLC for DBD, so a Baldur's Gate specific DLC could be both redundant and a conflict of interest. Even so, could you imagine the potential for a DLC like that? This is the part of the video where I know a lot of you will agree with wanting this chapter, but I'm unfortunately gonna have to crush a few dreams. I'm a huge fan of the works of Stephen King. Almost half of my overflowing bookshelf is full of his novels, and not just because it has well over 1,000 pages. So, much like many of you, I would love to see Jack Torrance, Carrie, Annie Wilkes, and of course, Pennywise the Clown. Now, Bloody Disgusting did publish an article in 2022 in which Dave Richard from Behavior publicly stated that he would love to collaborate on a Stephen King chapter in Dead by Daylight. And many people assume that this would mean a collaboration is well underway, but unfortunately, that's likely not the case. Many of the other devs over the years have gone on record and said that they would love to work with Stephen King and bring his works to the fog. Way back in 2019, some eagle-eyed fans spotted that the official Dead by Daylight Twitter account was following King and took that as a sign that we'd see Pennywise in the game. And then nothing happened. But if there's one thing that fans of Stephen King know, it's that he is stubborn and also very vocal when he doesn't personally like how his characters or stories are portrayed. In an interview with David Letterman in 1980, King famously said about The Shining that while he likes Nicholson's portrayal of Jack Torrance,
I feel as though I'd given Stanley Kubrick a live grenade and he heroically threw his body on it.
In that same interview, when asked about licensing his work, he honestly answered that he doesn't like what a production company puts out, then he will not take credit for that being his work. King has stated across multiple interviews over the years that he tends to even steer people away from watching film or TV show adaptations and rather urges them to read the original novel. As for his stance on video games, he starts an article that he wrote for EW in 2008 with the words, "I'm no fan of video games." While us DBD fans can hold out hope for this crossover, none of this bodes well for us. King ultimately has all of the rights to his original works, and if he and Behavior can't reach an agreement on how his characters perform and tie into the realm of the entity, then he has no obligation to work with them. Stephen King has made plenty of fame and money from his stories and continues to make them with huge deals in the realm of film and TV. So by comparison, while Dead by Daylight is a huge game among horror fans and gamers alike, it just isn't as big of a market and would probably take a lot of convincing and money. So while I'm with the most of you in wanting some kind of Stephen King adaptation in Dead by Daylight, it's realistically not going to happen anytime soon. That's all for my list today. If you like Dead by Daylight content and want to stay up to date with news and my thoughts on the game, be sure to subscribe. But for now, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.